They want to feel safe sending their kids back.
Work with us, be flexible and creative so that we can get kids in class in a safe manner.
With the start of the school year just weeks away, the province shoots down a plan to address concerns over COVID-19 in schools. The plan put forward by the Toronto District School Board would have seen a shorter school day and fewer students in the classroom. That's something many parents and public health officials say they want. But the province rejected the proposal. Ali Chiasson kicks us off tonight with why it was rejected and what happens now.
The Toronto District School Board has already had to go back to the drawing board at least once after their plan was rejected, according to the province, for suggesting shorter class time.
300 instructional minutes, 300 minutes of learning in a day in Ontario. We want all of that time to be used to the extent humanly possible for learning, and we think parents expect that.
Just one of the many issues still up in the air with the first day of school just 3 weeks away, including class size, which the province says it will work on procuring more space around the city to be used as makeshift classrooms where kids can physically distance.
Which we know is important to public health, it's important to our government, it's important to parents in Ontario.
While the province says it's playing nice with the school boards while negotiating, they slammed teachers' unions, saying they weren't being
flexible. To be flexible
and work with us, be flexible.
Cutting through the finger pointing and focusing on what needs to be fixed are school trustees like Rachel Chernos-Lynn.
Right? It's about hand washing. It's about screening. It's about masks. It's about, clean bathrooms. It's about not having dirty hands touching faucets. It's about having water bottle refill stations.
And improving ventilation in schools with already crumbling infrastructure.
There has been some money given by the government. They've said $50 million for the province as a whole, but the TDSB has an aging infrastructure. And so the cost of fixing our ventilation is substantial. So we would really like to see, a rolling basis of funding to get this fixed over the course of this year.
Since the latest TDSB back-to-school plan was rejected, trustees like Chernos-Lynn have an opportunity to add to it. She'll be supporting a motion to tackle the ventilation issue at the TDSB's COVID committee meeting tomorrow. She's also supporting another motion about masks.
Would it be students from kindergarten to grade 12? Mask requirements?
Yes, as well as visitors and staff. Really anybody in the building.
It may feel like these big decisions are running late for class, but as one trustee puts it,
and just because it can't be fixed by September 8th when school opens doesn't mean that it shouldn't be fixed at all.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Mayor John Tory says the city is looking at allowing school boards to use city parks and other spaces in order to allow for more physical distancing of students.
We wanted to sort of tell them what we thought was possible, which is quite an extensive offering of different kinds of space, including, as I mentioned, obviously, very open use of the parks without permits.
The mayor says talks are ongoing between the city and the boards in terms of logistics. He says more information will be provided in the coming days. Toronto Public Health is also in the process of recruiting nurses who will be part of health teams in the schools. When kids head back to the classroom in a few weeks, so will thousands of supply teachers. As Lauren Pelly reports, some of those occasional workers worry that bouncing between schools amid a pandemic could put staff and students at risk.
For 2 years, Nahid Mauji has dealt with the uncertainty of being a supply teacher. This fall, there's an added pressure.
I'm putting myself at risk. I'm putting other students at risk. Of course, I do take the precautions, but this pandemic and this infection is unpredictable.
He worries if supply teachers work at multiple schools, it could fuel COVID-19 transmission.
You're going school to school to school, not knowing you have it, and next thing you know, another spike rises.
While those fears for supply teachers are new, some experts say it echoes Ontario's crisis in long-term care. As workers bounced between buildings, the virus spread to residents and staff in dozens of homes.
The more people you're exposed to, the higher the risk there is of potentially contracting COVID.
Back in April, the province banned care home staff from working in multiple facilities. but officials are taking a softer approach with schools.
Our guidance already says to school boards that those supply teachers, vocational teachers really need to be, to the extent humanly possible, focus on one school or a small limit of schools for that supply.
Supply teachers are also, I think, amongst the most precarious workers in the education system.
Paul Balking represents a bargaining unit for occasional teachers. His union is calling for a system where each school is assigned a group of supply teachers, giving those workers more stability while reducing virus spread.
We have unique, I think, risks and issues due to the nature of our work.
Thousands of supply teachers across the province could be facing similar concerns about both safety and job security.
It's been very unpredictable. I wish.
Mauji also works part-time as a server, and he still isn't sure how many teaching calls he'll get.
It's all up in the air.
That means an added stress in an already stressful pandemic. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Mississauga.
It was just 1 week ago that a new chairperson of the Toronto District School Board was elected. Alexander Brown takes over the top job at the TDSB at a time when concerns are swirling around back-to-school plans. Our Marivel Tarouk spoke with the new chairman and found out the first day of school may not be the same for all students.
You've said yourself this is a historic time for the board. So I want to ask, what is going to be your guiding principle?
The guiding principle for me is right now we are all hyper-focused on getting our schools open as soon as possible. September 8th is the goal. We may need some time, a week, maybe two, to stagger kids in so that we can make sure everything's safe and that teachers are comfortable with the setup of our classes. This is, I suspect that this will happen. This is going to go on until September, October, November, I don't know. But it's something that we're going to have to continue to be vigilant about. And right now, that's where my focus is.
The latest plan that the board presented was rejected just this past weekend.
Yes.
I want to ask how that sat with you after all of the effort that we know had gone into putting this plan together.
Yeah, like a lump of lead right there. It's not very pleasant because we keep hearing that everyone should be at the table and flexible. The TDSB has been at the table since this has started, working with the ministry, and we've been flexible. We've been doing what they've asked us to do, what they've directed us to do, and we keep bringing back plans that our plans are not just solely based on the ministry's directive. We have to listen to our parents as well.
Do you have a sense of where parents are leaning mostly?
Well, I think most parents still would prefer that the classes stay small because they want their they want to feel safe sending their kids back. I think that's any school board's first priority is the safety of not only the kids but the teachers and anyone who enters our schools.
There's talk of a reserve fund and an ability to dip into that.
Yes.
The reserve fund has a limit too. There's only so much in there.
Yes.
Given what there is, do you see opportunities there to create the smaller class sizes that you were hoping for, or the ability to hire the teachers that you need in order to execute that part of the plan?
Those, I think, are options that I'll hear about today and tomorrow, especially tomorrow. I don't know yet. I think we already had a plan that allowed us to do what we wanted to do in terms of the smaller class sizes within a $20 million envelope, which we have more than enough to cover. But now we can't because the ministry has said you must meet that 300-minute per day requirement. And if that means larger class sizes, so be it, is what we've been told.
And yet we're still the option to stagger the start of the school year.
That's on the table. That's on the table.
That's all still there.
Yeah, the minister has even said publicly that he supports that. And in the case of our board, I think he would be even willing to allow us an extra week, not 1 week, but two, if that staggering needs to take a bit longer. But probably we would want to get all the kids back before, as soon as possible anyway.
So driving behavior has not improved, it's gotten worse.
Thanks to a drop in driving during the pandemic, 2020 was shaping up to be the safest in years on Toronto streets. Still ahead, how recent tragedies are putting that notion in the rear-view mirror and how some want to make our roads safer. Police have pulled a body from the water at Bluffers Park. Emergency crews had been searching for a 23-year-old man who went missing while swimming with his brother on Saturday. The other brother died after being rescued. Kelda Yoon is live at Bluffers Park for us tonight. Kelda, bring us up to speed. What's the latest?
Well, Chris, I just spoke to Toronto Police just moments ago, and they say investigators have still not yet confirmed the identity of the body. However, the family of that missing man, they were notified early this morning that a body has been found. Now, the scene here at Bluffers Park, it's been mostly cleared. You can see behind me just a little bit of police tape left, and this was a very tragic weekend here at Bluffers Park. This was the third body to be pulled from the waters here in the span of less than 48 hours, and it is prompting renewed warnings about the dangers of swimming in the open water. Emergency crews descended on the beach at Bluffers Park this morning after city maintenance workers made a grim discovery.
As they walked down to the water, they could visibly see that there was a body in the water.
Police have yet to confirm if it is that of the 23-year-old who they had been searching for. Two brothers signaled for help after going for a swim Saturday evening. One brother, a 30-year-old, was pulled from the water but died in hospital. Divers spent the rest of the weekend searching for the other one.
Yeah, I feel so sad.
Abdullah Mosley was there that day and remembers the waves.
It was pretty heavy. Yeah, that's what it was, really wavy.
But I think too it might also...
Kimberly Bask lives nearby.
There's a lot of boats coming in and out. They make waves. It disturbs the water flow.
I would just remind the public how important water safety is. Multiple times we've been called out this weekend.
3 times on Saturday. The body of a man was pulled from the water late in the afternoon. 2 hours later, 2 men rushed to rescue a young boy in the water, both injuring themselves on the rocks. It was as rescuers were assisting them that they got a call about the brothers.
I was really shocked and surprised that there were so many incidents in one location.
Barbara Byers from the Life Saving Society also says the pandemic is likely changing habits.
While the pools are open, they have limited space, that you have to reserve a spot. So it may be that people find it, harder to go to pools to swim, so they're going to the beach.
And that can be riskier, even for strong swimmers, due to unpredictable conditions and fewer lifeguards. Byers says 70% of all drownings happen in open water.
You can't tell from looking at the water if there's a current, if there's an undertow.
She says you should always swim with at least one person, and if you get in trouble, to never fight the current.
If you try and go back the way you came, you're going to be exhausted. So you want to go with it, but start angling yourself towards the shore, say about a 45-degree angle.
Now, lifeguards here at the beach at Bluffers Park, they're on duty between 11:30 in the morning until 6:30 in the evening every day. So they were gone by the time this incident happened, which was at around 7:30 in the evening on Saturday. Now, Mayor John Tory, he did say earlier today that the city will be looking at whether these hours need to be or should be extended. So far this year, there have been 63 drownings in Ontario. That ties Quebec for the most in the country. Chris.
Such a tragedy. Thanks for the update tonight, Kelda.
A bit frustrated. I mean, the amount of money I pay for TTC and to go, it's a coin toss between which one's not going to work.
Hey, remember this? You likely do if you are one of the unlucky commuters traveling on Line 2 on the morning of January 22nd. The partial derailment of a subway train leaving the Keele Yard shut down a busy stretch of the Bloor-Danforth line for 4.5 hours. The TTC deployed 100 shuttle buses to stations between Jane and Ossington, but thousands of people across the city were left waiting in the cold for hours. Almost 7 months after that commuter chaos unfolded, we are learning that the TTC knew about a missing part on that section of the rails for 2.5 years and didn't replace it, which caused the derailment.
I'm disappointed in the TTC, and I think that the TTC management and TTC board should be held accountable. Transit riders deserve an answer. It's a safety issue. When a subway gets shut down, obviously a shuttle bus cannot carry the amount of people as the subway can, and the subway is already over capacity as it is. So that's a safety issue. I saw images of all those people in the bitter cold going onto the streets, crowding the streets and the road. People were actually on the road because there was no space.
After the Toronto Star broke this story this morning, the TTC says a review of the derailment revealed that a missing kicker plate and localized rail wear caused the incident. The missing kicker plate was identified as an issue back in 2017, in June of 2017, in fact, but work to replace it was not carried out. In a statement, TTC spokesperson Stuart Green says after the issue of the missing part was raised, we immediately checked available stock for a replacement. Unfortunately, we have no additional information as to why that work was not completed prior to January 2020. We have learned from this incident, as we must always do when things like this happen, and the statement went on to say that we have improved our processes to address the underlying conditions and causes. And this was the scene earlier today on Adelaide Street after a load of trash caught fire in a garbage truck. The driver dumped the burning waste onto the street, and crews were on scene quickly to extinguish the flames. No injuries to tell you about, but there was a soggy mess that was needed to be cleaned up, piled into a dumpster, and hauled away. Well, the day started off with some pretty great weather, but that turned in a hurry. Hey, Colette?
Oh boy, Chris, lots of active weather across southern and eastern Ontario, including just as we were going to air, a tornado warning was issued for the nation's capital, Ottawa, Canada region. That has just been downgraded to a severe thunderstorm warning, so still very busy weather there with a very strong storm that's moving through the nation's capital. For us, it was just before 3:30. We had a severe thunderstorm warning right for the city of Toronto, and you can see how it had the impact. As you say, it was a really nice day. Right around noon, our temperatures in the mid-20s. And then we jumped up to 27 degrees, but you could see how the temperature was coming down in Oshawa as the storms were beginning to develop. Then they dropped altogether as we saw more thunderstorm development. This is where they're sitting right now, just as of 6 o'clock. There are some of the storms from earlier as they've been moving away. Yes, we are getting into a clearing trend. Still a little bit of residual. We're seeing some downpours around here, especially just around Hamilton and to the south. So still you could get caught in some rain and some of these winds kind of strong, but we'll get into a clearing trend overnight. 15 for the low. Tomorrow, just an isolated shower, mostly a dry day, a comfortable day, 24 degrees. I've got more, though. More heat's going to come back at the end of the week. That's coming up, Chris.
All right, good. We will check in with you later.
Sounds good.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
York Regional Police are looking for this driver after police say they caused a vehicle rollover in Markham on Saturday. You see the car failing to remain at the scene after the incident. It happened shortly after noon near Markham Road and 14th Avenue. The four-door gray car makes a left turn, hitting a Jeep and causing it to flip. The 58-year-old male driver suffered minor injuries. Police are now looking for this vehicle. They're asking anyone with information to come forward. There has been a sharp drop in the number of pedestrians killed on Toronto streets so far this year. That has a lot to do with the fact that there are fewer cars on the road because of the pandemic. But the deaths of 2 toddlers last week are providing a sobering reminder that as things return to normal, pedestrian deaths could spike again. Nick Boisvert has more.
After months of relative quiet, Toronto's roads are looking more like themselves again. At intersections like this one at Overlea and Don Mills, safety advocates worry about what comes next.
I see a complete absence of road safety measures in this area.
Seconds later, a driver unwittingly helped Jessica Speaker make her next point.
Driving behavior has not improved, it's gotten worse, and we've seen now with more and more people driving again, more and more road violence.
Last week, the GTA had 2 tragic reminders of that reality. On Tuesday, a 3-year-old was struck and killed crossing the street in Etobicoke. A day later, a 19-month-old toddler was struck and killed by a van in Mississauga. Their deaths come amid what has been the safest year on local roads since 2007. So far this year, 10 pedestrians have been killed and 46 seriously injured in Toronto. That's down from 39 deaths and 133 serious injuries last year. The city attributes that decline to COVID-19 restrictions, but it says Toronto should still be safer than ever, even as upwards of 300,000 students head back to class.
We have automated speed enforcement, we have watch your speed technologies,
We have community safety zone signage, double the fines. We've lowered the speed limits. We've put in enormous resources to make our school zones safe.
As well as community.
Critics say those changes are useful, but they're not happening nearly fast enough.
We would like that installation to be increased and to get as much as done as possible, especially when kids return back to school.
The city says it will also introduce 80 new school safety zones by the end of the year, but Speaker says those bring mostly superficial changes, like better lighting and signage.
What we really need to do, especially in school zones to keep children safe, is redesign streets.
The city says it is focusing more on that strategy, but not specifically around schools. Nick Boisvert, CBC News, Toronto.
The NBA season was far from normal, but it's now playoff time for the Raptors as they look to repeat as NBA champions.
Gasol, the open three, good!
We'll get you caught up with Game 1 of their opening series against the Brooklyn Nets and how Toronto is cheering them on. That's next. The Raptors are back in playoff action with their first series against the Brooklyn Nets beginning this afternoon. While the pandemic has taken fans out of the arena, many are glued to screens. In the case of the OLG Play Stage, one big screen. And Greg Ross is live there watching it all for us. He is at that new waterfront drive-in. Greg, a unique experience out there for people.
Yeah, it's no Jurassic Park, Chris, but I guess in the times that we're living in, this is just about as good as it gets. Fans able to drive in here, sit in their cars, watch the games, and when the Raptors score a basket, that's what happens. They start honking their horns like they're doing right now, and they've had a lot to honk about in this game. The Raptors dominating right from the get-go. They scored 73 first-half points. How about Fred VanVleet in this game, dominating for the Raptors, having a career high in points. He's got a double-double with more than 30 points and 10 assists as well. So great game for him, leading the way for the Raptors. The Raptors leading big time in this game right now, up by 17 points, looking to add to that right now. But I can tell you the fans here are happy, and it's good news for businesses in the city too, who are hoping to capitalize on this. We've got the warm summer weather, and we've got patios open for these restaurants to invite fans in, and some of the people are just taking advantage of this great opportunity.
Combination of the Raptors being in the playoffs and the weather being so nice is going to definitely help us.
Rocco Mastrangelo owns Cafe Diplomatico on College Street. He's got his patio all set for what he hopes will be another long Raptors playoff run.
We have a 12-foot by 15 feet video wall. We've got only 3 extra TVs in the front, plus our big TV inside. So all the TVs will have the Raptors game on today.
He says with his patio extended onto the street, he can now fit around 100 outside, and he'll have a handful of tables set up inside. In past years, fans have also lined the sidewalk beside the patio, but that's not an option this year.
So we're going to have to sort of police it because obviously with COVID, you know, we need to keep the distance and we don't want people hovering over other people.
Working with Serge, great touch.
Another place fans can gather while practicing safe physical distancing is the OLG Play Stage, a massive drive-in movie theater set up at Ontario Place.
It's a little bit surreal because you're like, it's August, we're playing basketball, we're in the playoffs, but at the same time, it's so nice to get out and feel the hype of everybody with their horns and just feeling it from everybody and seeing everybody smile. It's amazing.
We're able to still be engaged with the team and support. I think it's awesome. In the rain. Let's go Raptors!
It's a unique experience, so we've come up with ways to get on with life, so it's nice.
It's a huge contrast from this a little over a year ago.
You know, everybody's saying, well, home court doesn't matter.
But Raptors coach Nick Nurse says the team will be keeping tabs on what fans in Toronto are doing, even if they are 2,000 kilometers away.
We'll probably feel the energy, and even though everybody's a long ways away and it's different scenario and certainly interesting times, I think we'll feel the support all the way down here.
Yeah, and you know, I'll tell you, there's been a lot of fans cheering here, and this is something I'm sure is going to go throughout the playoffs. We had some bad weather today, so I think that may have kept some people away, but still not a bad crowd here to watch this game, to cheer on the Raptors, and somehow, Nick Nurse talked about it today, he hopes that MLSE can get that energy down there to the players so they know that they are being supported, and lots to cheer about, as I said earlier on. Raptors now leading this game, under 4 minutes to go, still up by 17 points. This is exactly how these fans wanted the Raptors to start these playoffs. Really, starting the playoffs just like they finished off the season, very strong, Chris.
Yeah, exciting stuff, and I hope you picked up one of those Raptors masks that those fans were sporting.
I'll have to get one for you, Chris.
All right, thanks, Greg. Meanwhile, the Toronto Argonauts will not suit up this year. The CFL season was completely canceled today because of COVID-19. The league had been planning a shortened 2020 season with Winnipeg as the hub city without fans in the stadium. But it decided to spike the season after Ottawa turned down a $30 million loan request. It means this will be the first year since 1919 that the Grey Cup won't be presented. The league says it's absolutely committed to playing again in 2021. When we come back, thousands of Canadian usernames and passwords were hacked, but the federal government says they have the cyber attack under control.
There was a vulnerability that was exploited. It was discovered and it was patched, and it no longer is a vulnerability on our systems.
Coming up, more on the hack that shut down the Canada Revenue Agency's online services. What to do if your data was breached and who could have been behind it. That's all next. Federal officials say the recent cyber attacks targeting the government's online services have been brought under control. The Canada Revenue Agency has temporarily shut down online access after 3 separate cyber security incidents. Authorities say they know the hackers gained access and they know what to do to prevent it from happening again. But as Allison Northcott reports, they still don't know exactly who is behind it.
And when I was looking through, I noticed that my banking information had changed. And so I was called the CRA and all the institutions that I needed to stop all my accounts and make sure that no fraudulent activity continued on them.
When Jennifer Fink noticed changes to her CRA account she had not made herself, she knew something was wrong. Hers was one of more than 11,000 accounts affected by a series of recent cyber attacks.
the Government of Canada has been taking action to respond to attacks called credential stuffing, mounted on the GC Key Services and CRA accounts.
The Canadian government says the attacks targeted sites millions of Canadians use, including Canada Revenue Agency, in an attempt to access government benefits fraudulently.
This is not an attack where a hacker is trying to go through the back door. They are going into the system just like normal users. They are applying credentials just like normal users. So it's very hard to detect that pattern from all of the good traffic.
He says usernames and passwords stolen in previous breaches from third parties were used to access CRA accounts. Those affected will get a letter in the mail with instructions on what to do. As for who is behind this and how much money was fraudulently obtained, the government says that's now part of an RCMP investigation.
Those hackers bet on the fact that people most of the time are reusing the same password over and over again.
So a key piece of advice is to always use a unique password and username, but some say the government has a role to play too.
Institutions, just like the federal government, if they want to make sure to secure that platform to a level that is above any wrongdoings, maybe they should revise how we can access those.
Certainly, we apologize for any inconvenience.
The CRA says it expects its online services to be restored later this week, but Canadians are being urged to monitor their banking and other sensitive accounts closely. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
CBC News has more exclusive details about Rideau Hall and Governor General Julie Payette, this time about her disdain for her security detail. It's the latest in a series of issues surrounding Payette's treatment of staff and her spending on renovations to increase privacy. Now sources say Payette's resistance to working with the RCMP, who are paid to protect her, has resulted in added security risks and extra costs. Ashley Burke has the details.
The Governor General is a symbol of Canada, and that makes her a potential target. She's mandated to have RCMP with her at all times, but sources say Julie Payette has made that difficult. An RCMP source said that she's tried to evade the Mounties in both Canada and abroad, and has slipped out of her hotel room during international trips at dawn to work out alone. That's caused RCMP to pay for an extra member to come on trips and guard her door. One source estimates that's an extra $4,000 to $15,000 per trip. This former RCMP commissioner used to oversee protective details for governors general in the past.
If the Governor General and the RCMP are playing this cat and mouse game, it stands to reason that the RCMP will increase the level of staffing around the Governor General just to ensure that she's covered 24/7 because they want to avoid any embarrassing situation to her, to the RCMP, and also to the general public if a situation would arise where innocent members of the public might be also in jeopardy.
Sources say Payette also regularly keeps the RCMP in the dark about her plans. Last-minute requests have caused police to rack up overtime, extra hotel rooms, and plane tickets triple the cost. Another former RCMP superintendent says that creates additional problems.
These last-minute things create all kinds of sort of causing the RCMP to operate in a state of flux. They have to react rather than be planned, which also creates a heightened level of, I would think, security issues.
Rideau Hall says Payette has tremendous respect for the RCMP, and costs are always at the heart of the decisions the office makes. Noting it's been a busy 2 years, Rideau Hall claims there has been no additional financial impact. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Back here in Toronto, a multi-million-dollar settlement has been reached in a class action lawsuit over mass arrests at the G20 summit in 2010. Thousands of people protested peacefully during the summit, but there was also widespread vandalism. In some cases, riot police reacted by encircling large groups of protesters, holding them for hours, and then transferring many of them to a temporary detention center. The settlement agreement of over $16 million comes after 10 years of court proceedings and negotiations between the Toronto Police Services Board and representatives for about 1,100 people who were arrested during the summit. In addition to compensation, which will vary from $5,000 to $25,000 depending on their experience, those who were wrongfully arrested will have their police records expunged. The deal also includes a commitment from police to change how protests are dealt with in the future. To Belarus now, and today the embattled president said he'd consider new elections, but only after a referendum on amending the Constitution. It could be a bid for time as mass protests continue following what many say was a rigged election earlier this month. Cindy Palm wraps the day's developments.
Lukashenko walked off stage to chants of "Step down" following an address to workers at a factory in the capital city of Minsk. The president has been saying contradictory things. On the one hand, he said there will be no new election until you kill me. On the other hand, he said he may be willing to step down, but not under pressure. Growing protests have shown his vulnerability, with the biggest crowds of protesters turning out this weekend. The opposition candidate, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, says she is prepared to lead the country and release this video from neighboring Lithuania, fearing for the safety of her family after the elections.
I'm prepared to take responsibility and act as the nation's leader during this period, so the country settles down and gets back to normality.
Lukashenko has ruled since 1994. He has been accused of bungling the response to the coronavirus pandemic and failing to grow Belarus's stagnating economy. Because of the unrest, Lukashenko asked Russian President Vladimir Putin for military help, which Moscow said would be available if necessary. Russia exports its oil to the West through the country and sees Belarus as a buffer to NATO. Meanwhile, Western leaders are trying to keep Belarus out of Russia's orbit. On Monday, UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said the results were fraudulent and asked for an independent investigation. And the European Council will hold an emergency meeting with EU leaders on Wednesday to discuss the election as well as the violence against protesters. Cindy Palm, CBC News, London.
The August 4th explosion in Beirut displaced 300,000 people, amplifying a resistance on donations simply to survive. That has some concerned about the effect on other refugees and migrant workers. But food distribution agencies say there is no Lebanese first policy at play.
We are delivering the food no matter what is their nationality, because we are working in a humanitarian case and we are helping everybody in need.
Beirut has about 200,000 Syrian refugees. Many were already jobless and living on donations because of the pandemic. 34 Syrian laborers at the port were among those killed in the explosion. Survivors worry that continued assistance will be too much for the country whose government is in turmoil. Mayor John Tory joined members of the Lebanese Canadian community today to remind people just how devastating the Beirut explosion was and of the continuing need for donations.
If it had taken place in Toronto Harbour, the effects would have reached all the way from Danforth Village in the east to Yonge and Eglinton in the north to High Park in the west. That's some indication of the area that was affected.
A stark reminder there from the mayor, and he is reminding people to donate to the Lebanese Canadian Coalition. The coalition was started in the wake of the explosion. The Canadian government has pledged to match those donations. In the United States, the Democratic National Convention kicks off today in Milwaukee. Joe Biden is preparing to accept the party's nomination for the presidency with Kamala Harris as his running mate. But the ongoing risk of the pandemic means this crucial Democratic convention will be an unconventional one. Megan Fitzpatrick has more.
Thousands of Democrats were supposed to travel to Milwaukee, Wisconsin this summer, but the COVID-19 pandemic has forced this week's convention online. There'll be no traditional balloon drop or in-person pep rallies to energize party members as they set out to campaign against President Donald Trump. Senator Cory Booker isn't worried about the virtual convention having an effect on supporters' enthusiasm.
I know that this is going to be different, but I think it's actually going to be a little more intimate. I think people are going to actually really enjoy it.
Party members will connect virtually and officially nominate Joe Biden as their candidate for president. He'll deliver his acceptance speech remotely from his home state of Delaware at the end of the convention on Thursday night. Delegates will also hear from Biden's running mate, Kamala Harris, named just last week as his pick for vice president. Every night there'll be primetime speeches by a variety of Democrats and even some Republicans. Tonight, former Republican Ohio Governor John Kasich, who ran against Trump for his party's nomination in 2016, will make the case for Biden to win this November's election. Another keynote speech tonight will come from Biden's former rival, Senator Bernie Sanders. His remarks will be important to help unify the party and get his progressive supporters on board with the Biden-Harris ticket. President Donald Trump, meanwhile, is attempting to steal the spotlight from Democrats this week. Today, he set off for, of all places, Wisconsin to deliver a speech.
Well, we're going to be stopping at a number of places. We'll be working very hard. It doesn't have to be covered, but it probably will be. But we're going to be working very hard, stopping at various states. You have a list of the states, pretty comprehensive. We're getting down to final crunch. We want to be there.
The Trump campaign is also pouring millions of dollars into a digital advertising campaign this week to counter the Democrats' message that the president must be defeated. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Toronto.
The Raptors make a huge statement in their first playoff game in the bubble, and now the party here at the OLG Play Stage is just getting started with this man, superfan. We're going to talk to him about Game 1 right after this.
Let's get Colette back in the mix now. And Colette, after this unsettled weather this afternoon, things are looking up, right?
Yes, we're going to see much better weather once we get through. There's still a little bit of active weather out there, Chris, that we're talking about. So let me just kind of show you what the headlines are. As we get into tomorrow, just isolated showers. That's the only possibility. Mostly it's going to be dry, beautiful conditions, so cooler and comfy for a few days. And then, hey, it's the pattern continuing. We'll start to heat things back up again. But look at our current temperatures. They really dipped down once some of those thunderstorms rolled through. We were up to 27, and in fact, 27 happens to be our current humidex value. You can see I've got the lightning strikes on here. So yes, there was certainly some lightning associated with some of these storms, but the biggest threat really were the heavy downpours that we were seeing and some of the gusty winds. Still some very active cells out there. We're seeing a clearing for the GTA, that's for sure. Just going to take you down towards the Middlesex region, Strathroy. Severe thunderstorm warning still associated there with this particular cell. So again, there's some active weather, but really we get into a clearing trend overnight tonight. The setup tomorrow is we'll get a breeze out of the northwest. It's going to be a little bit gusty, but it's just going to be fresher air that will have an isolated shower into the afternoon. It's possible. Most of us will have dry conditions and lots of sunshine. And speaking of sunshine, we're going to have a few days of that as high pressure builds in again and just treats us to nice summer-like weather. It's going to be comfortable overnight tonight as we clear out. 14 to 16 degrees will be your overnight lows. Tomorrow afternoon, below seasonal. And again, a little bit breezy with those winds coming from the northwest. Wednesday, again, sunshine, temperatures below seasonal, back to seasonal for Thursday. And sure enough, there we go. By Friday, Saturday, in time for the weekend, Chris, those temperatures get to go back up close to 30 degrees. And sure enough, that humidity will start creeping up a little bit too.
That is a forecast I can get on board with.
All right, good.
Thanks,
Climb
Colette.
on.
I can get on board with this, too. 1 down, 3 to go. The Raptors take the first win in their opening playoff series against the Brooklyn Nets with a decisive victory, 134 to 110. And Greg Ross is live at the OLG Play stage down by the waterfront. Greg, despite the weather and the ongoing pandemic, plenty of fans out there enjoying it.
Absolutely. I mean, the Raptors making a huge statement, giving these fans plenty to cheer about, including the man they call Superfan. Nav Bhatia here to talk about this game. I mean, first of all, 24-point victory for the Raptors. Not a team that always gets off to a great start in the postseason. Last year against Orlando, they lost their first game, but not here.
Not here now. Well, you know what? In the third quarter, they did relax a little bit. They let the foot go away from the pedal, but then again, they realized that, you know, we are within the 9 points now or 10 points. It's too close. So they came back and they regrouped. And you know what? We have a hell of a coach. We have a hell of a coaching team right there in Coach Nurse. And, you know, I was talking to Coach Nurse this morning.
You texted him this morning.
Yeah, wishing him all the best. And I said, let's not be complacent. Let's do one game at a time. And he thanked it. And, you know, we talked for a little bit time on the text, via text. It's amazing. I'm proud of my team. I'm proud of my, you know, all the players. You know, yeah, we don't have a superstar, but you know what? As a team, we are amazing. We are the best team in the league right now, and people will find out. People will find out that we are the best team.
Nav was getting the people here that were watching the game going. He had the white towel like you sometimes see on the sidelines. And it was Fred VanVleet getting things going for the Raptors on the court. 30 points, 11 assists, a double-double. That's a career high for him. Great game for the Raptors. We're out of time. We're going to send it back, but we'll be hearing more from this guy.
Raptors go. Stay tuned to Raptors. Back to back.
There you go,
Here
Chris.
first. I love it. Thanks so much, Greg. Appreciate it. Next on CBC Toronto News at 6, how one man is bringing people together one dance move at a time.
So it started very organically. I didn't have any plan to become a viral sensation, which sometimes surprises me still.
When Gurdeep Pandher's dance studio in Whitehorse was closed down earlier this year because of COVID-19, he took his dance classes online and quickly became a social media sensation. Now he's using that fame to fight racism. Over the past week, he took the joy of Bhangra dancing to Vancouver Island, building cultural and even political bridges. Deborah Goebel has more.
5, 6, 7, 8, start. 1, 2, switch.
In the library rotunda of the Victoria Legislature, an unusual sight.
1, 2, switch. 3, 4. All the MLAs from all the parties, they are going to dance Bhangra. First, I'm going to train them. I'm going to show them how to do 1 or 2 moves.
Staff and BC MLAs aren't the only ones Gurdeep Pandher's been teaching. Since COVID hit, he's been taking his love of Bhangra dancing on the road. Along the way, he's built a pretty big following on social media.
So it started very organically. I didn't have any plan to become a viral sensation, which sometimes surprises me still.
But even though he didn't expect this kind of attention once he had it, he decided to use it. As a first-generation Canadian, he's experienced racism. But Bhangra, he says, can ease the divide.
I find that one reason behind racism is lack of education. When people don't know about other people, they become suspicious, they become doubtful. So when people come to learn, when people know about other people, it creates more deeper connections.
So with just his music, he will start to dance. Bhangra started with farmers in India when their day was done. He wants to bring that joy to everyone he meets. Which is how he found himself in the BC Legislature teaching MLAs from both sides of the House how to dance. Because even when your politics don't align, the joy of throwing out your arms, kicking out your legs, and dancing together is universal. Deborah Goebel, CBC News, Vancouver.
I love it. So Bhangra started when the day was just about done, the work day. Our work day is just about done. Colette Kennedy now with some
Come on,
Bhangra
Chris,
dancing.
let's see it. And we've got a Raptors win as well to celebrate. So
hey,
lots,
this is a great day.
Lots of reasons to be dancing. And you will be as well when we can get some of this thunderstorm activity out of here too. You can see kind of the main action is moving away. However, it's just a few cells popping up now. So just to the south of Barrie here around Essa, that's a new one that's just showing up. We've also got some active weather still, severe thunderstorm warning there around western Elgin County. So there's still some action for the next couple of hours. You're still going to have to be kind of mindful of what's going on before we really see this clearing out. Then overnight, quieter conditions moving in. We clear out altogether. 15 degrees is going to be the overnight low. We get into very comfortable air that moves in tomorrow. In fact, it's going to be kind of fresh with the breeze coming out of the northwest, a little gusty at times, 24 for the high, lots of sunshine, but I do have to tell you of a risk, and this is highly isolated, but the odd shower could show up into the afternoon hours. Most of us will just experience a very dry and beautiful day tomorrow, Chris, for dancing.
All right, I love it. Thanks, Colette. Have a great night.
You too.
A programming note before we go, you will not see us on CBC television tomorrow night at 6 due to the Stanley Cup playoffs, but you can find us on CBC Gem and on our website as well. That's our show for tonight. Have a great night.